On today's Transport Evolved, Gigafactories leaving BMW, controlling your car from a smartwatch, and why people buy plug-in cars in the first place. These stories and more coming up on Transport Evolved. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 189 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Sunday, March 2nd, 2014. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bluefield.
And I'm Mark Chatterley. How are you today, Nikki?
I'm all right, thank you, Mark. I almost said 2013, which wouldn't have done me any good at all. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not too bad. I have had a day of sleeping, which is good.
Sleeping sounds most excellent. I am so envious of you.
Excellent. That's good. It was nice. I haven't had a proper sleep in a long time, and I was like dead for 15 hours. It's amazing.
Dead?
Wow, asleep. Dead to the world.
We should go and introduce our guest today. For those who are watching at home, you'll notice that the camera angle is slightly different to last week. That's because we were going to have a third guest, and then unfortunately they weren't able to make it back in time, which is why you can now see three screens, and I'm kind of squidged on the end. But we do have one guest who has turned up today, Mr. Scott Cronce. How are you, Scott?
I'm good. How are you today?
Yeah, I've had good days, I've had bad days, and today is somewhere in the middle. But we've got lots of stories to talk about. Now, you say it's raining in California, which apparently is something of a meteorological event, given your past weather.
Yeah, so I think this is our second or third storm that we've had. And with the somewhere around last night, I think that we finally got to the point where it's not going to be the driest winter on record. We just surpassed the 1851 driest winter.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we've had the wettest, hasn't it? It's been confirmed, Mark, right?
Yeah, wettest winter in the past huge number of years, and wettest January in a huge number of years, and wettest December in a huge number of years. It's just very, very wet here, but not all that cold, to be fair. So that's good.
Yeah, I'd rather have the cold, to be honest, Mark. I really would.
I don't mind. I see it's just rain.
So we've got some really interesting stories today. I'm feeling slightly off kilter because after last week's show, everyone told me that I wasn't allowed to look at you all in those cameras over there. So I'm now looking straight into the camera, and it just feels weird.
Looking at me.
And this studio is so small, we're kind of run out of ways we can film and do stuff. So I think we're going to have to rethink it for next week. But the brick wall may come back. But let's start with the first big story, which, of course, is the Gigafactory. So after months and months and months of speculation, the Gigafactory was finally talked about by Tesla officially this week. We've had some stories in the past from Tesla about the Gigafactory, hints dropped by Elon Musk at official events. We've had some sort of forward-looking statements that have hinted at the Gigafactory, but this is the first time we've actually had the Gigafactory detailed in any large way, right, Mark?
Yeah, because it's been something that's been talked about for the past half year, maybe some little rumours a little bit before that, but not a lot. And we haven't really had a lot of information about where it will be, what it will be, other than it will make batteries, it will recycle batteries. It's kind of the whole beginning to end cycle for batteries is this factory is. And we knew it would be big. We didn't quite know how big it is, and some people had kind of suggested it was going to be on the scale it was because of the name, but to see it all confirmed in figures and numbers, which is the biggest, it's as a factory, it will surpass the output of every other battery factory in the world put together, which is amazing. And then powered by renewables, so a massive solar panel array, massive wind.
Yeah.
I suppose it's it's visionary on a different scale. It's not just a company going, we need to make batteries, which is kind of what Nissan did. They went, we need to make batteries. We'd get some money from the American government. We'll pay it back at some point. We'll make a battery factory. It wasn't that. It was, we need a battery factory to make these cars, but we also know we need to make the batteries cheaper, which means doing it in volume. There's other things we can do around batteries to sell that service. Let's just go for it and make everything we can dream of. And it is... Yeah, it's just, I quite like this idea that a company looks forward so much.
What I really like about this is the figures involved, okay? I just put a graphic up there a minute ago. By 2020, the Gigafactory will be putting out 35 gigawatt hours of lithium-ion battery cells per year. 35 gigawatts. Now that is, Mark, 35 million kilowatt hours. 35 million kilowatt hours per year of cells being made. And the battery manufacturing is 50 gigawatt hours. So that's 50 million kilowatt hours per year. And that is an unbelievable figure. That's enough to make 500,000 Tesla Model S's. 500,000 per year. Scott, this is revolutionary, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's it's great to see a public company putting that much money in what is, a multi-year investment to try down the cost of batteries, because that is probably the largest single cost for electric vehicles.
And do you think that in terms of investment, it's going to get Silicon Valley? Is it going to revolutionize Silicon Valley? I mean, you live and work in the Valley at the moment.
That's a good question. So, see, I think I read 4 to 5 billion in total, and they're going to put about 2 billion in. Panasonic wanted to put $1 billion in. Those numbers are around the same as what I think Intel spends when they spin up a new factory. So it's not unheard of. It's just only a few companies have done that kind of investment for large plants. So I think, about every 4 to 5 years, Intel does that in order to spin up a new processing type.
Wow. Mark, we should be in the battery industry, shouldn't we?
Well, yeah, it does make me wonder why nothing like this has happened before. I mean, it's been fairly obvious that batteries are going to be more and more needed as more devices become mobile. Mobile phones have been taking off, and they still are taking off like nothing. iPads, iDevices, laptops, phones, watches are getting more intelligent, need higher power, need more batteries, and electric cars are taking off. And it just amazes me that none of the existing battery companies kind of took the plunge and did this themselves. It's come down to a car manufacturer, and the same thing. It's kind of the same with charging infrastructure. It's come down to the actual car manufacturers to do something good. And again, Tesla's leading the way with that, with the superchargers in Europe and in America, and hopefully soon in the UK as well. But I mean, Nissan's got their rollout in the UK, but it's still not very good. That whole dealership model, that's being replicated in America, that doesn't work so well. Japan, there's loads of CHAdeMO everywhere, so it works there.
Yeah.
So it's one, it's absolutely brilliant, and two, I'm just kind of sad that I didn't have the capital to do something like this myself.
I think I must have said gigawatts instead of gigawatt hours and being told off by the chat room. Of course, I did mean gigawatt hours.
It's the easiest mistake to make in our industry, though. You just miss one word when you're speaking quickly.
Gigawatt hours. Of course, I know that gigawatts is power and continuous. Yes, gigawatt hours is stored energy. All right, so let's talk some more big figures here. 10 million square foot inside the factory on 2 levels. Between 1 and 2 levels. Total land acreage of between 500 and 1,000 acres. Now, it's not clear if that includes the renewable generation, so the solar panels and the wind turbines, which Tesla says it needs to make the whole factory 100% renewable. That's phenomenal. Sort of locations, it could be one of the following locations, or one of the following states has been shortlisted. All of the 4 following states have been shortlisted. Tesla will pick a site in one of these states. It's either going to be in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, or Texas. Mark, do you have any favourites out of that list?
I see this is my knowledge of American geography is atrocious. I have no kind of knowledge of internal politics or any sort of geography in America. So I'm going to bow out of that question quite gracefully, because I'm sure whatever I say will be perceived as wrong.
Scott?
Yeah, my guess is that it's really up to who's going to give them the best deal for tax purposes or for free or anything like that.
From Tesla's point of view, of course, it makes sense for it to be Nevada or Arizona, because those are the two closest states, obviously, to Tesla's facility in south of the San Francisco Bay. But I'd be interested as to why Texas and New Mexico are on the list. The only reasons I can come up with is that there's a lot of land that isn't being used in both states because, very hot and dry and good for solar panels.
That's true. I think there's Arizona has quite a bit of manufacturing, which is unused right now as well.
Yes, of course. But
they're going to have to truck the batteries though back to Fremont, which the further you go. So in Texas, that's probably a day and a half worth of trucking fees you have to pay.
Now, interestingly, what Tesla hasn't hinted, and I'm going to just kind of seed a thought here. Elon Musk's been very clear that he wants the factories to be low carbon, zero carbon, in fact, running from renewable power as much as possible. And the cars, obviously, they're going to have an extremely low carbon footprint throughout the manufacturing process. Shipping those batteries is going to cause some kind of carbon emissions unless Tesla comes up with something crazy like going, okay, we're going to produce a model whatever truck, and we've made our own special trucks that we're going to ship these batteries every day. I don't know. Any thoughts on how they're going to get them there, Mark?
Let's hope he decides to go ahead and build a hyperloop between the two facilities. That would be amazing. Or he uses the grasshopper vertical takeoff and landing, so he's testing all of his technologies at once. That'd be amazing. That's
probably train would be my guess.
Yes.
In the US, the trains are diesel electric anyway, so it's not zero emission, but it's pretty low.
All right, well, let's move on to the next story. Reports from Japan suggest that Panasonic, which is currently a supplier for Tesla, is trying to raise $1 billion between it and its buddies, effectively its own suppliers, to invest a sizable chunk in the Gigafactory. Now, Tesla's going to put $2 billion of its own money up, Elon Musk said this week, and it's estimating between $5 and $6 billion to build it, commission it, and run it to 2020. For Panasonic to put that much money up front, or to consider putting that much money up front, I think is phenomenal, because it does indicate that perhaps Panasonic views this as a game changer too, and presumably if Panasonic does it, then Tesla's not going to have much trouble getting the rest of the investment. What do we think, guys? Scott?
It might be more of a defensive move. So Mark, when you said you were surprised that you didn't see a battery company do this, I'm not that surprised. Battery companies don't have a vested interest in reducing the cost per kilowatt, whereas car companies do. So it could be that Panasonic, which has quite a lot of patents with large batteries, that they just want to protect that interest and somehow be part of this new factory, or watch it and potentially do an acquisition at some point. They probably don't want to be left out with dropping from roughly 500 kilowatts to 350 or so, or 300 kilowatts, and lose that extra revenue without gaining from it.
Mark?
I think that makes sense to me. It's also a very sensible investment for any company that wants to remain in tech. I mean, from Panasonic's point of view, they make all manner of different tech, and to be in with Tesla in a serious way, which is what this would be from their point of view, they get first dibs on various things. When Tesla starts sourcing new screens for the inside of their cars, and when Tesla starts sourcing other technology, they've got a partner who's already invested in them, who they can go to and can offer them nice deals. It makes sense from an investment point of view. Like I said, if I mean, I would love them to crowdfund this, and I could just throw money at my computer. Because there must be enough people in the world who would want a part of this factory and a part of the Tesla dream and the ideal.
Well,
and I think it would work. It would be the largest Kickstarter campaign in the world. We need 2 to 3 billion.
Let's make some new batteries. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that happening. But I mean, I think Apple's probably going to stump up some cash. I would be very surprised if Apple doesn't stump up something. And
I'm wondering if we will see some other car manufacturer.
I was going to say Nissan, actually. I thought maybe Nissan might. But Nissan's already got its own plants, of course. So maybe not. I can't see Toyota getting involved, obviously, or Daimler, really. And both of them, obviously, currently have an investment in Tesla. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll step up. Talking about Japanese automakers, however, this week, Honda reiterated its plans to end the Fit EV production at the end of this autumn, or early this autumn, rather, in the US, basically as soon as the 1,100 cars that it originally said it was going to make have been made and sold. Now, the Fit EV, lovely sort of 5-seat subcompact, really versatile as a car. Very fun to drive, so I've heard. It's got 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger. Obviously, it looks like a regular Honda Fit, which attracts a lot of buyers to it because not everybody wants an unusual looking car like the Leaf, and the Leaf is quite unconventional in its looks. And so the Fit EV is proving very popular in California. There are waiting lists at Honda dealers, so much so that Honda dealers are having to, in some locations, fight people back and go, well, okay, we'll put your name on the list, but you're probably not going to get one. But Honda says, no, we're just reminding you we're killing the car at the end of the year. Tough luck. Similarly, we talked about this last week. Honda is killing the Insight and the CRZ in Europe and I think also America. It's been confirmed. What's going on with Honda and EVs? What the heck? Scott, you are in California, so maybe you can fill us in.
That's good. I don't know. I know that Honda is very conservative. So they came out in one of our meetings and let us drive the Fit, talk about it, and that they were asked, how come you're making a compliance car? And the response seemed reasonable, which is that they really wanted to make sure with the trial that they would have no issues at all, that they're extremely conservative. That part makes sense. What doesn't make sense is why, now that they're kind of the end of the trial, why aren't they have other EVs or other plugins that they have on the lineup they're talking about? So it is a little strange.
I just think I just think it's just going to be FCVs, right, Mark?
Yeah, I do think that they may be going down the hydrogen route. My thought from this is it time for California to update its rule and say that limited run
mandates.
zero emission cars don't count anymore?
And is this so essentially what you're saying is kill the compliance car regulation and make it has to be a mass produced volume car. But the problem is, how do you define volume? Because automakers would fight that all the way to the Supreme Court, and they would also probably complain and go, well, okay, what's the definition of mass produced?
Well, there must be a ruling about how many they could make at the moment, because we're not seeing manufacturers roll out with 4 of these Honda Fits. They've done 1,100 of them. So there must be some sort of threshold, maybe over 1,000. It becomes it's then allowed to be sold and count towards it. So just raise that limit is all I'm asking for. And you could argue that
is that 1,000 per year?
I don't know. I don't know what the limit is, but there must be one, because otherwise these manufacturers would have made 4 of these cars.
I don't think it's necessarily a limit issue. I think it's just how they calculate the credits that you get for zero emission. And so they have the car company has to decide: do I buy them, and Tesla's the largest seller of them, or do I produce a low run EV in order to get the maximum amount of credits?
But it is sad, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, they're playing what I suppose is from my point of view, they're playing the system to be allowed to sell cars in the state with these compliance cars. So just make the system harder to play, and make it. And it's not as if you are providing a detriment to these companies, because the more they make, the cheaper they get to make, and we know there are people out there waiting to buy them.
Okay.
So it's win-win. It's just these manufacturers need a bit of a push. Like car manufacturers didn't want to introduce seatbelts. They didn't really want to do that. It was more cost to them, and it was only when it became law that they actually start doing it. Well, all of the manufacturers started doing it, and the same with emissions. They were quite happy to let cars trundle along with terrible emissions, terrible miles per gallon. And it's only when they became legislated that suddenly their engines got a lot cleaner. And I'm just asking for that to happen, I guess, in the world of EVs. We need a bit of stick.
Okay.
Going on.
Okay. Be interesting to see what people think about that at home. I think that's going to be a tough one. Legislatively nightmarish to make happen. All right. Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid has the shortest range of any production electric car on the market today, or plug-in hybrid on the market today. Some people say 6 miles, some people say 11. I've given up trying to peg it, because every time I peg it, someone tells me I'm wrong. I've used EPA, I've used NEDC, and, I've managed personally, I can get 12 miles in all electric mode out of a plug-in Prius, but it's not a very big car. It's not got, in terms of its battery pack size. And it's a very kind of neutered car. You can't really drive it heartily in electric mode, because then the gasoline engine kicks in. But over in Japan this week, Toyota started a test fleet of wirelessly charging Toyota Prii, using an inductive pad that goes underneath the back of the car, where your fuel tank would be normally in most cars, or your spare wheel or whatever. And inductive parking spaces that can charge the car when it's parked over the spot. Now, the thing that I think is really clever, and one of the reasons why I'm talking about this, is because anyone who's driven a Toyota Prius for the last sort of 6 or 7 years, specifically a high-end one, will know it's got something called Intelligent Parking Assist, IPA. And IPA will, if you set it correctly, will park the car, reverse park it into a parking space, or parallel park it for you. You just have to drive up to the parking space, put the car in reverse, press the IPA button, and then it will ask you to confirm that that's where you want the car to be parked, and it will park it back into the space for you. It's the party trick where you put your hands out the window and go, "Look, mum, no hands." And this wireless parking system or charging system uses that same technology, except it's got that added layer of identifying the wireless charging bay, and then it backs the car into the space so that you've got the maximum power transfer and the maximum efficiency. I think that's pretty clever. Whatever you think about wireless charging, and I'm not necessarily a wireless charging fan, but the other thing that I think is really clever, because to begin with I was going, oh, why have they put this in the Prius? It's got a terrible sized battery pack. No one's going to use it. But thinking about it, small battery packs and inductive charging kind of go well together, don't they, Mark?
Yeah, yes. It makes more sense, because it's the dilemma you have when you go to, say, a supermarket that has some charging stations, and there are a few in the UK, and some of them even work. And you go there and you think, I'm only going to be even if you're doing a big shop, I'm only going to be in there 20 minutes, half an hour. Is it really worth plugging in? Because I'm only going to get a couple of kilowatt hours of power stored. So is it really worth it? And from my point of view, generally, it's not worth getting the cable out, faffing about with a card, waiting for it to recognize, waiting it to start charging, then going in, taking it all off at the end. But with wireless charging, you don't worry about that. And
no.
You just plug in, you just pull up, and you go about and do your business. And it becomes ubiquitous. Your car's, when it's not moving, is charging, and when it's not charging, it's moving. And with a small battery pack, that makes sense, especially if you're the kind of driver who you take the kids to school and you park at a local car park and then walk them the last bit. Then you go do the shopping, you pick up the laundry, you come back home. And all of those little top-ups mean that your 12-mile range car or 10-mile range car or whatever the range is suddenly becomes a 30-mile range car, because it's always getting that little bit of power back.
Yes.
So from that point of view, it makes sense. I'm with you on I'm not sure about inductive charging because I'm not quite sure if we're at the point yet where we should be sacrificing 10% of efficiency of the power we're putting into a battery pack. But that's maybe just me.
But I mean, do you think though that in a small battery, because this could be one way of making electric vehicles cheaper? And I know that sounds absolutely crazy. That sounds bug whatever crazy. But actually, if wireless charging did take off, and inductive charging was in every parking space, you could probably get by with a smaller capacity battery pack for round-town trips, right, Scott? Or is this a dangerous path to be going down?
It's a good question. I guess the real problem is this another standard so that the plug-in Prius can park in that spot but nobody else can because it's only designed for that one car? Or will we have an actual wireless standard charger?
Well,
then it becomes a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, as far as I'm aware, there is a wireless charging standard that's now been set out.
Agreed.
Certainly in the early stages. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It is now time for our ad break. Mark, tell us about the ad breaks and what we're going to be doing in a second.
So if you're watching not live, so watching this in the future, there will be an ad break here. But there's not if you're watching live, basically because we can't embed live adverts at the moment because of fun and YouTube.
Yes.
If the advert does come up, do watch it. It's wonderful because all adverts are wonderful and we get a little bit of money. It lets us to make this show for you.
Yes.
And Nikki can dream of her future studio, which has massive space.
Yes. And the fact that I'd have a producer who remembers to press the record button at the beginning of the show. So if you're watching this after the event and you wondered why the quality of the video wasn't very good at the beginning, it's because I didn't press record immediately. I feel such a...
damn this! You've got so many buttons around you.
I know, and this is the problem. I need someone to, if you watch a lot of these podcasts, like This Week in Tech or whatever, they actually have producers. They have huge numbers of people behind the scenes. It's just me in this blinking broom cupboard. Anyway, watch the ad. I'll stop complaining. We'll be right back. We're back. Second part. We're with Scott Cronce from California, who happens to work for a little-known game company. I'm not going to say their name. Make some big-name stuff.
Which is in the game.
Yeah, it's in the game. This is because you're actually talking to us from an Xbox, aren't you, Scott?
I am, from an Xbox One.
That is so cool. So cool. So let's move on. Now this is one that Scott...
No, that was very funny. So when I said the word Xbox One, it actually popped up, and now it's listening for my commands.
So
apparently you can do that in videos as well. I've heard. I don't know if they fixed it yet, but if you watch YouTube videos where people give Xbox commands, the Xbox can respond to them, which is fun.
He was showing me today's TV listings and wanted me to pick a TV show.
So if I said Xbox One, play...
No, because it's not coming through the speaker.
Oh,
right now.
That's a shame. That's a shame. Right, okay. On to the story. Many BMW Active E drivers are turning their back on the i3. Now, this is a story that Mark and I have been working on for a substantial period of time, right, Mark?
Yeah, it's been trundling along as a idea for about 3 weeks, and we've been gathering data for 2 weeks, week and a half,
and a lot of people have said to us, "Oh, we did a survey on Facebook." We asked a lot of Facebook people on the Active E owners group if they'd be getting an i3, what they thought of it, etc., etc. And it was a simple poll. I'm going to get one. I'm not going to get one, and some of the reasons why they were going to get one or weren't going to get one, and some options as to what car they were planning on getting. A lot of people, when we published the story, came back to us and went, "Yeah, you're spot on. We've spoken to Active E drivers, and a lot of them do." Seem to prefer the Active E over the BMW i3. Since then, a lot of people have come on and gone, your methods weren't very secure, weren't very robust. You only had a very small sample size, etc., etc. And yes, we did. But we also spoke to a larger number of people offline. Now, this is something I found riveting. I would say about half the BMW Active E drivers I spoke to approached me off Facebook and said, I'd like to tell you that, yes, I'm going to be getting a different car. I'm not going to be getting a BMW i3. I'm going to be handing my Active E back and I'm going to get another car. And I'm not saying it publicly because I'm worried if I tell you publicly, and I say this in a forum, BMW will be watching and they will demand my Active E back now. And I've effectively told BMW that I want an i3 because that means I can keep my Active E just a bit longer.
It's sad.
And there are multiple reasons for this. The majority of people, interestingly, say it's the lease pricing, Scott. 900 plus a month, 900. We've heard people talk about lease.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's combination because if you're going from an Active E, which is a 1 Series, which is
it's a nice car,
into a completely different style car, which is carbon reinforced plastic, hadn't been done before, that looks different. Then that, from a style point of view, and then you add on to it that I'm just thinking about transportation, it's going to be more expensive than my other options. What should I keep with BMW?
Yep. And of course, the other thing is a lot of BMW drivers went, BMW Active E drivers went, what we really wanted was a car like 150 mile range. We didn't want the Rex. The BMW i3 has a smaller battery pack and is a smaller car in a lot of ways than the Active E. It's taller. And this is my personal view because I've driven both cars. My personal view is that the Active E drives far better than the i3. I'm not the only person who said that. I've spoken to several electronauts who've said that. I've spoken to many electronauts who say, no, the i3 is a far better car. It's a far more finished car because it's a production car. But I think the general gist of this is that BMW seemed to make the car it wanted to rather than the car that drivers wanted to. And in fact, that's something someone said to me, Mark.
Yeah, and if you acknowledge everything that we said, and we spoke to people in the forum and offline, so there is quite a wide spectrum of answers, but it is mainly from people who have approached us and we've approached. So you could argue it's people who are involved in the EV community. We're not talking to the standard buyer, but it seems like BMW did a lot of research with the Mini E and the Active E, and then created the car it wanted to create anyway, which, fine. I mean, they're perfectly entitled to do that. They created a car with the carbon reinforced plasticky cool stuff and had a lot of innovation in it. But it didn't match with what a lot of people wanted. And the range, the Active E had a bigger range and people still wanted more. And then they released the i3, which has got a smaller range than the Active E, without the option to extend it in a pure battery sense, which is something I've raised with BMW representatives and been given the runaround on an answer, which is, if you're going to give a Rex as an option to extend the range, why don't you give more batteries as an option to extend the range?
You do have the DC CCS rapid charging standard.
Yeah, but if you buy an i3 in the UK at the moment and in the US, there aren't a whole lot of places you can charge.
The hilarious thing is that the Japanese i3 is going to have CHAdeMO.
Yes.
That's the mind-blowing thing. So the standard that is now really pushing through Europe and really pushing through the US, CHAdeMO standard, certainly in UK anyway, is going to be the default standard for the i3 in Japan because that's the ratified, agreed upon standard for Japanese electric vehicles for fast charging. But over in Europe, it's a combined charge standard, the CCS, and obviously over in America as well. And it's just insane that BMW is making 3 different versions of this rapid charge port.
Yeah.
Just to stick with standards, yet the one that's really ubiquitous isn't
the
being,
one they're going with.
Yeah. So, and then there's other reasons as well. I mean, people saying, the biggest challenge when it comes to price, it seems, is people going, I can get a Tesla Model S for a little bit more.
And that's, I mean, I know BMW is a premium brand, but I mean, do we have to start segregating premium brands when it comes between internal combustion engine cars and electric cars? The i3 is very nice, and I've not driven one, but I've sat in one, and it is lovely on the inside. The looks are kind of love it or hate it. I hated it when I saw pictures, fell quite in love with it, bar a few minor tweaks in real life.
Yep.
But is BMW, because they're a premium brand in internal combustion engine cars, does that make them a premium brand in EVs? I'm not sure it does. Tesla is a premium brand in EVs.
Yes.
And Tesla does not compare with the i3. And maybe there are different levels of premium, but then we're just getting silly.
No, and I agree with you. To kind of close this story and move on to the next one, I'm going to extend an invite here. If you are a BMW Active E driver and you think, our story on Friday is unrepresentative and you want to say, look, we are buying an i3, we love it, this is why. My invitation to you is to come and write a guest post for us over at transportevolve.com. We'll publish it. And we'll put both sides of the argument in, because we want to be fair and balanced, don't we, Mark?
Yeah, and on the same day, I mean, you wrote up the findings of that story, and I wrote up the fact that the i3 was voted the first ever UK car of the year, which so it's got its admirers out there, and those were from traditional press journalists who were voting on that prize.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad car.
No.
Maybe it's a missed opportunity.
Well, let's move on to the next story. So, you live in California, Scott.
Yes.
You have bought a Nissan LEAF. You bought a Nissan LEAF a long time ago now, 2011.
Right.
So it's 3 years old yet?
I got delayed. I think I didn't pick it up until May, so it's not quite through yet.
Okay.
It was. It got shipped over just before the tsunami hit.
Yes, mine too. Mine. I picked mine up on the 28th of March, 2011. So it's got its MOT on Wednesday. Its very first roadworthiness test.
I went with the zero emission decal on the side, which meant I had to wait another almost month for the decal to come over from Japan.
So the car came over and came before the tsunami, and then the decal came over after that. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, can I ask you a question? I don't know if you've read this survey, but why did you buy the LEAF?
That was my fourth EV. So if I go, it was fun. The survey is kind of funny because to me, Nissan LEAF versus Volt versus Prius, it fits the typical California thing of buy the LEAF for environment, of save money, and the plug-in so that you can drive in the HOV. I thought it was great. For me, the real reason is I wanted something a little bit more modern than the 2002 4, with a much better entertainment system, with Bluetooth for my iPhone, everything up to standards. Well, it's all about gadgets.
So there was a study released this week, and it's a study that was taken early last year, and it was asking people why recipients of the California clean vehicle rebate, why they bought the car they bought. LEAF owners overwhelmingly said they did it for environmental reasons. Most LEAF owners. Most Volt owners said we did it to save money on gas. And most plug-in Prius owners went, we did this because we want the HOV lane access stickers. And I never before thought about vehicle purchasers falling, the reasons behind buying a vehicle falling into a particular stereotype or not. Had you, Mark?
No, I hadn't. I kind of presumed there was one universal reason, and I've always tried to find that common factor for people buying these cars. And it seems to be an interest in renewable energy is the one common factor that seems to cross most people who have any type of EV. But it makes perfect sense when you look at the study that people have bought the plug-in Prius, which doesn't have a huge all-electric range, because they wanted the perks that came with that car and they were used to the Prius. And then the LEAF, which has a longer all-electric range, people are more interested in the environment. And then the Volt, which is, I'm going to get in trouble, but is an internal combustion engine car with a large electrical range, is for miles per gallon. And it suddenly all makes sense. But without data confirming it, I suppose it just hadn't occurred.
Yes, I suppose in retrospect, it does make sense. But it still surprised me. And I'm almost wondering if it's really representative or if it just reinforces stereotypes. Will be interesting to see this year's survey, which was which will be taken early this year and will be released this time next year, to see if those views have changed, and obviously there'll be more plug-in cars because we'll have the Model S represented and obviously all the compliance cars represented. So I think there'll be a larger cross-section of community. The thing that really bugged me about this all, though, is they asked some sort of auxiliary questions about household income, etc., etc. And I wrote a blog post over at the Green Car website this week about this because it blew my mind. Of the people who had received the California rebate for buying an EV, half of them who responded, so there's just under 4,000 respondents, so half of them, nearly 2,000 people, said that their average household income was between $150 or more $1,000 a year. So 50% were in that.
That's California.
We're in that top bracket, right? The average US wage during 2012 was 51,000, and I don't think I'm necessarily asking for any answers, but it shows us that EVs have to get cheaper, and we have to figure out how that's going to happen. And Mark and I had a bit of a backwards and forwards this week on the thought of the day, didn't we, Mark, about that one?
We did, yeah. There are a couple of different ways, and it kind of spurs out many different ways of it could get cheaper, and there's ownership models and how many batteries are made and smaller range and different types of vehicles, and there are lots of ways it could be done. It's how many of those ways will be acceptable to members of the public, I guess, is a big question.
Yeah. No, that's a point. I hadn't thought of that.
Is that a fair representative of that?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think that is probably the thing. And I suppose maybe we need someone like maybe we need an electric car program. Buy a Tesla, get one free. So buy a Model E, get one free to give to someone else.
That would work.
That would work.
I can see that working.
One Tesla, one something. I'm going to move on before I get myself into even more trouble. So the Tango EV, Scott, you'll be familiar with this one.
Yes, I know the Tango.
So how many Tangos are there in California? Have you seen any? Very many.
I've seen one in the Bay Area, and I see it every few months or so.
Right. So
it's pretty rare.
So the Tango EV is a little tiny 2-seat electric vehicle, four wheels, 2 seats. You sit one behind the other. It's narrower than a Honda Goldwing, which isn't saying much really, but it's narrower than a lot of cruising motorbikes. You know, Harley Davidsons, etc., or some hogs anyway. It's got 2 DC electric motors in the rear wheels. Not in the rear wheels, driving the rear wheels. So 1 motor per wheel, so it doesn't need a differential. The original version had lead acid batteries, but they're now putting lithium ion in. People who own them include Google founders. Sergey Brin and Larry Page have both had one. I don't think they have them anymore, but I know they did have them. George Clooney had one. 0 to 63 point something seconds mark, which is phenomenal. Faster than the Tesla Model S or a Tesla Roadster. And they were in production long before Tesla was producing cars. Now they were also in a film. If you watch Frank and the Robot, I can't remember what the name of the film is. It's about a burglar called Frank who's suffering from a form of senility, and he has a robot, and I can't think of the name of the film. It's in that anyway, because I was watching that the other day and I went, oh, it's a Tango. I wrote about that this morning. And there's a guy in New Zealand who wants his local council in Auckland to invest in a pilot project to get all of these Tango EVs over from Washington, where they're made, Washington State, and use them to lease out to people in Auckland, New Zealand, as a way of beating congestion and pollution. Now, he's not suggesting that they take the Tango T600, which is the top spec, really powerful one. I think they're talking about the T200, which is, much more average in its performance and range and price and everything else. But these cars are really expensive. Mark, 2-seat Tango, do you think the masses would take it or not?
Not with the price. People don't like the Twizy, and that's cheaper, which has a very similar style to it. It's I quite like vehicles like this, but I think I've talked about it before. They're kind of what I call utopian vehicles, which is they make perfect sense if everyone's driving them in and around the city. But the moment you put them on a road with big steel 1.5 ton, 1 ton, 2 ton cars going at 50, 60 miles an hour, and suddenly they don't make a lot of sense because they are a lot more vulnerable. It's the same argument I use against motorcycles. I'm not a motorcyclist. I'd never be one because they don't make sense when they're on a road with 1.5 ton steel boxes. That's what it comes down to. And I suppose that's my issue with it. If we could build a society from the ground up and say in the center of a city, you can only cycle, use public transport, or these types of vehicles, yes, they work perfectly. But I think they're a bit utopian.
Well, interesting to say this because there's a guy working in California who is academic who suggested that we have future roads, or we have 2 different road systems, one for cars and one for everything else. And cars are not allowed on, so every house is serviced by both roads.
How would that work?
It's pretty crazy.
Double-decker roads.
It's very clever. It's very clever. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think it'll take off in Auckland? Do you think the New Zealanders will like it, Scott?
I don't know. It's the Tango is a very nice car, but I think the lithium version is 156,000 US.
Yes.
If you pull, a third of the batteries out, bring the motors down, you're talking expensive than a Tesla. Now,
yes.
You could fit 3 of them abreast the same size. So maybe he's just trying to figure out how he can get council to fund some of them so he can drive one around.
Yeah, probably. He's a bit of a convert. He seems a nice enough guy there. Nice enough guy. All right, moving on. Talking about, we did talk about Tesla there in passing. The Nissan LEAF advisory board was set up by Nissan to try and better understand what drivers want out of electric cars, and also to improve Nissan's own communications back to LEAF drivers of its electric cars. And it's very, proactive about sending out questionnaires and talking to drivers about what they want. But now it turns out that Nissan's been going one step further and approaching Tesla Model S owners and going, so what do you like about Teslas? This is a brilliant story, Mark. Mark?
Yeah, the questions... Hello, can you not hear me?
You're very delayed.
Hello? Anyone there?
You're very delayed.
I'm sorry. Probably a slight little lag on my internet, but hopefully it will pick up. I was just the questions that they were asking were all about how far did you drive? How often did you charge? Did you charge up to full top of your battery pack and all of that? I'm worried that the conclusions they're going to draw from that aren't the conclusions they should be drawing from that, because all of that is going to reinforce the standard of what we know, which is most people don't drive more than 30 miles a day. Most people don't need to rapid charge at the speed that the rapid chargers have. But so if they take the data of, well, Tesla's made a car where people don't need the range and don't need the charging speed, then they never will try and rival that in any way. But if what they take from that is people don't use their cars like that, but that's what people want. In the same way that if you have an internal combustion engine car, you still only drive 20, 30 miles a day, but the car can go 500 miles on a full tank. And that's what they need to be drawing from that, is that the LEAF, and I love the LEAF, I drive one, perfectly competent car. If it had double the range, it would be even better. And if it could charge faster, it would be even better. And those are the conclusions they need to be drawing. And that's what makes it desirable. And that's what's going to get conversions into the car. And that's what I hope they're going to draw from it.
I think it's going to be an interesting one to see. If I would like to see the 150-mile range. Scott, what do you hope from it?
I think that they're trying to do is figure out what right price point and size of a battery is an option for more range. So I haven't seen the surveys yet that ask questions like, would you pay an extra 10,000 US for another 100 miles of range? That's what they have to get to before they figure out what someone's willing to pay for that extra that extra 100 miles or extra 80 miles.
I've just got a message from our guest on my watch. Our other guest.
Ah, I see.
It was from
You must have Pebble then. Too.
Yes. Oh, oops. I have a Pebble. And he just said, it was going to be Robert Llewellyn. He just says, "Oh my God, I've literally just walked in the door." He was at a Red Dwarf thing, and he said it was a nightmare journey from Leicester. So we forgive you, Robert. It's okay.
Just to point out, we have lost the stream to YouTube for some reason.
Oh, I don't know why. I didn't do anything.
No, I didn't think you did.
It's YouTube's fault. Let's blame YouTube. Blame YouTube. All right, moving on then. Electric cars catching fire is a common thing that
very common.
that right-wing media outlets like to talk about. It's not a common thing. It's just something that they talk about frequently. How about that?
Yeah, that's better.
Is that a better way? Electric cars don't actually catch fire that often. In fact, less often than petrol cars. But there was a video that popped up this week on YouTube from a company or a person who wanted to try and see if they could make a Nissan LEAF battery cell catch fire. Mark.
Which, as starting out investigations go, what are you doing today? I'm seeing if I can make a LEAF battery catch fire. And they tortured this battery, bless it.
Fully charged.
Fully
and
charged.
they hammered it with a screwdriver. Here we go. Screwdriver, a little bit of smoke, and then nothing. So they take the screwdriver out, a little bit of smoke. They pull the screwdriver out, and then they poke it in again. They twist the screwdriver, and they get a little bit of smoke. And that's basically it. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And then they try burning it, and in both situations the battery continues to give power. So this kind of puts to bed the idea that the battery packs are not robust, right, Mark?
Yeah, and if you look at the comments in that video, someone said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. What you should be doing is you should be testing it for being punctured while it is being charged or it is discharging." And the guy went, "Okay then," and while it was being charged, hammered a nail through it or something like that, or wailed on it with a lump hammer. It's absolutely fine. And I think it shows that, yes, there is a lot of energy in these battery packs, but that energy is dissipated relatively quickly as heat.
Mm-hmm.
But not like combustible fire. It kind of just comes out as heat relatively quickly, and then it's got no more energy to give up. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Scott?
Did they soak it in salt water for 20 minutes too?
I think they may have done, yes. But it's incredible, isn't it? It's better than the demonstration. Wasn't there a demonstration at one of the consumer shows recently, electronics shows, where someone managed to destroy a phone that was supposedly water resistant, got like a hydrophobic coating on it,
and they managed to destroy it?
I can't remember. I'm sure I heard something like that on the grapevine. But anyway, I think that's brilliant. Time for another advert. In the interim, I will try and get the YouTubes working again. But if you're watching live on YouTube, you should watch this and essentially watch the ad. Don't skip it. We'll be right back. All right. So Israel could soon be a better place for electric cars. This is a story that you covered this week, Mark, and it's surrounding life after Better Place. So Better Place battery swapping was essentially the only way of owning an EV in Israel for about a year. And you rented you bought your Renault Fluence, and then you leased your battery pack from Better Place, and it allowed you access to its battery swap stations. And then if you needed to go longer distances, you just switched your battery pack out and off you went. But rapid charging never really caught on because battery swapping took 5 minutes, and quick charging, even with something like CHAdeMO, is half an hour, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, 20 minutes, 0 to 80%, if all temperatures are normal and fine, so usually about half an hour. and then another 20 minutes to get that last little bit if you want to. And so the idea of battery swapping works in a controlled, closed circuit, if that makes sense. So if everyone's using the same battery, if everyone's using the same way the battery is connected to the car, it makes sense, and it can be done very quickly, which is why Tesla's system might actually work, because they control everything. They control the infrastructure, they control the cars, they know how everything's being put together. In a slightly wider setting with multiple manufacturers and multiple cars, I'm not sure it works. Better Place tried to eliminate extraneous factors by saying, well, we're only servicing this one car by Renault in these custom built stations. So I don't know how it would have rolled out to more cars. That would have been, I'm sure they would have had a plan for that, but it didn't work. They, I think, sold just under 1,000 of the cars, and they had placed a preliminary order for 100,000 of them. It just never really kind of got the traction it needed to get going. And so since the company went into administration and got bought out, it's kind of, nothing's happened in Israel, bless it. But now we've got two companies joining together, actually a gas company.
That's lovely,
company,
isn't it?
And another company coming together to provide rapid charging for Zoe's and Leaf, so CHAdeMO and Rapid AC, which is absolutely brilliant.
It's awesome. It is awesome. Scott, have you been to Israel?
I have actually been there twice. We had a developer in Tel Aviv that we used to do flight simulators. I was thinking, having been there, it's a relatively small country. I think there's only about 100 miles of coastline. So it would seem pretty easy to a really good use case for being able to blanket the place with chargers and have them serve everybody and get anywhere they want to without really even trying.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how it will catch on, because I think a lot of people will put off electric cars and Better Place failed. I think that's a sadness, really. Range anxiety, it's all in your mind, Mark. You don't suffer from range anxiety, though, do you? Not really?
I know what you're getting at here. Don't play coy with me.
What? You mean I'm driving a $100,000 Tesla Model S P85 and I've got range anxiety because I don't know if I'm going to drive all the way from Gloucestershire to London?
I didn't have range anxiety. I just pointed out that the estimated miles that we could travel compared to how far we had to travel with only 6 miles difference in it. That's all I pointed out. And suddenly that's range anxiety and I'm stressing, and it was absolutely fine. But yes, the study has come out to show that people limit their EV range by up to 25%, which is actually quite a large part of maybe your range. And it's all to do with the idea that there's a comfortable range that you have, which you know you can drive.
Yeah.
There's a uncomfortable range, which is I know the car can do it if I'm very careful. And then there's a kind of, I know my car can't do this, but I need to do this kind of range. And those figures don't match with what the car can actually do.
So yeah, they put it at the, I know if I'm driving really carefully, I can do this distance, and I will, but it will be hell.
Yeah.
And that in of itself will induce range anxiety. I've been there, and I will admit to having range anxiety on long distance trips. I've been there where I'm going, I've got no bars left. I'm getting close to a turtle, but I've never had a turtle. So those red bars for me is a warning enough for me to slow down and drive really carefully. The achievable range, though, is what most people stick with. The range that they know they can do with the heating on, etc., etc., etc. And this study from a doctoral candidate in Germany suggests that essentially, if automakers want to improve the range that their customers get out of their cars, they need to work with their customers, not just put bigger battery packs in. Scott, have you ever had a turtle?
Nope. Well, in the RAV4 I did, but not in the Leaf.
Yeah.
But
That's
once you've driven a route once, then you drive it carefully if it's on the edge of your envelope. Then after that, you know exactly what you can do.
maybe there's a new business, Mark, that maybe we can do. Maybe the business is actually offering people who've just bought a brand new EV, essentially, not like driving lessons, but
eco driving lessons.
you
how to
accompany
get the
them.
most from your EV.
Yeah, you accompany them and actually put them on a course on how to get the most out of your EV. There you go. We have problems with YouTube today. I just want to say this: if you're watching live, in fact, YouTube has just closed our stream. I don't know what we did. We didn't do anything. We are still recording though. I am watching the lights here. It's red on both, so it should be going through Justin, and it should be going through to my disc. So I hope that everybody will be able to watch it. Compliance EVs. This is a really interesting story from John Volker over at Green Car Reports. Compliance EVs are really good cars, generally. They're really well made because, automakers have had to make them. And so they tend to make really, really good ones to make sure that they fulfill all the requirements. But it turns out that buying a compliance car, but even in California, might be bad news because your local version of your dealer might not be able to service it. Now, this is similar to my own personal problems with my Chevy Volt. There are only 3 official Chevy Volt dealers in the UK. The Vauxhall Ampera, which is essentially a Chevy Volt in a different suit, is sold in the UK, and there are lots of Ampera dealers. But there are no decent numbers of Chevy Volt dealers, and so I have to drive sort of 80-mile round trips to get my car serviced. Now, Scott, this is a warning from John Volker, who says that this might be a problem on the West Coast. If you buy a RAV4 EV and ship it to somewhere where there isn't a RAV4 EV dealer, it might prove difficult getting your servicing.
Yeah, we saw that with the original RAV4. I think it's not unique to EV. I think it's any low volume vehicle, especially if it's only sold in one area. So as the RAV4 EVs of the 2002 time were getting older and older, if you had brake problems or something, that's easy.
Yeah.
It was the same. But if you had anything to deal with the battery, the motor, or anything like that, it had to go to a qualified EV technician, which eventually there was one in one in San Francisco area and one in the LA area, and that was it.
Oh.
So if you had shipped it on the East Coast, you're probably luck. So there is a lot to that. Really about the specific EV components as it gets older in life and needs service. You may not have anybody still in that company knows how to do it.
Wow. And
in the case of Toyota, they would not let anybody service it unless they had gone through the EV technician program.
And this is the same, I think, with all car dealers now. I think it would be the same if you had a Nissan LEAF. I know when the LEAF first came out, it was very difficult getting someone to look at it. But it's unfortunate because you're giving people a Hobson's choice of dealers as well, aren't you, Mark? It's not exactly friendly.
Well, I don't know. It does mean that those dealers are guaranteed to know about your car. The last thing I'd want to do is take my car along to a dealer who went, yeah, I can do that, and then messed about with it, thinking they could do it. And God help them if they touched the wrong bit of it and electrocuted themselves or something like that. You'd never hear the end of it in the media. So in one way, I'm quite glad that there is quite a restrictive program on this. But yes, if you buy one of these cars, surely you do factor into that how far you need to go to pick it up and take it back. Like when I was buying the LEAF, I was lucky enough to have 3 dealers I could get to in theory to pick it up. In fact, slightly more than that, 4. But when I was first looking, they hadn't confirmed them all, and there were only a few. And one of the one I was thinking of was out of the range, but I was still considering buying it. But I knew that once a year for the service, I'd have to do sort of an overnight trip or ship the car there and back. But that's a compromise you'd make for the car if you were buying one of these cars and didn't live in the state. Surely that's to say that's a problem, and the people buying the cars didn't know it is quite an odd thing to say, I think.
Well, I think it's going to be different for each person, isn't it? Because some people are going to do the research and they're going to think about it first, and some people are not, like me. Or you're just going to make assumptions. I would assume, for example, that a Toyota Prius dealer might be okay doing an EV because the Prius has got EV parts in it. But I've since learned that it's every single car. You have to be certified for every single car. So much in the same way, it's the same for high-end cars. So if you assume, in the UK certainly, not every dealer will be certified to deal with performance cars. So your local Ford dealer might be certified to work on the European cars, but they might not be certified to work on a Mustang. Even if the Mustang that you own has the same engine in it as that, 4x4 that is sitting in the corner, the garage is not allowed to work on it, because if they screw it up, it's going to cost them a lot of money, and it's a customer's car, and it's all going to go something, all going to go wrong. Let's move on to our next story, Mark. Do you want to introduce that one?
Our next story, because it's all gadgety. There's been a wonderful story this week that we found while we were. Well, it was sent to us actually, a YouTube video of a lovely guy with a very special watch, and you have one of these watches, don't you?
Yeah, I'm just trying to set it up now, which is why I asked.
Quickly!
I'm trying to set it up. I've got the app on here.
You may have heard of the Pebble watch, which is a watch that's made with e-ink and e-paper. So you can program any display you want on it. It's incredibly low power usage, so it goes like 3 or 4 months without being charged. And it's Bluetooth enabled, and you can put all kinds of apps on it. And someone has programmed a Tesla app for their Pebble watch. So they can now control and do all the things that Tesla allows you to do remotely with the car through their watch, like honk the horn or unlock it or set the air conditioner to any temperature they want, Nissan. And Nikki has had great fun playing with this little app on her watch.
Yeah, I just don't have a Tesla
Model S.
So here are the things you can do. Where are we? Top: enable AC, climate status, start charging, charge status, stop charging, lock doors, honk, flashlights, reconnect, car info, turn off AC, and then the final one is an about one. But it's amazing what you can do with open source software, isn't it, Scott?
It is. I've got a Pebble as well. I think they're a very fun toy to play with.
They are incredible, and I didn't think that the Pebble was gonna, be something that I was gonna get into originally, because that's why I didn't Kickstarter it. And then the show's good friend and my good friend Aaron Crocco raved about it so much, I ended up getting one. Actually, when we met up in last month, we were talking about the apps and whatnot, and it's a great. I mean, it's just a regular watch. You can have any watch face on it, and I'm hoping someone will do one with the Nissan LEAF. Essentially, at the end of the day,
there's a thread in the developer forum where somebody was asking for it, and I'm assuming that one of the app developers will go ahead and make a Pebble version, and
that would be really sweet, wouldn't it? I mean. Mark, you're missing the party.
I am, but I keep looking at the Pebble watch, and do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of WAP mobile internet. So back in the very, very early days of mobile phones, there was a mobile version of internet you could get on your data connection called WAP, which was just text or very, very low resolution grayscale photos. And that's what it looks like to me. And WAP came and went so quickly. I can't help but think that the next version of the Pebble and what's going to come in the next year or two is going to blow it out of the water. So that's why I haven't jumped on board. Also, I don't wear watches. I don't like having things around my wrist. So I would need some sort of Pebble pendant or something.
Well, I'm just setting this up now, actually, so you can see this. This is, while I was doing this is a terminal output from another project that I've been playing with this week. This is called Pi Car Wings, and I've just remotely used this. This is running on my Raspberry Pi, one of my Raspberry Pis, to monitor my charging of my Leaf. So I've just started it charging.
Very cool.
And I'm going to be playing with that. And I'm going to be playing with that with home automation and obviously the what's it called? Ninja blocks and my watch. I think that's going to be awesome, as we say in these parts. By the way, someone was talking about the t-shirt that I was wearing the other day on Transport Evolved, TEN. And it says, "Te YouTubes likes it when I vlog." Because it was something that I said, wasn't it, Mark, a couple of months ago?
Before you went away on holiday.
And I
yes.
jokingly said
Holiday?
someone should make it for me. And so my other half did it as a kind of an early Valentine's present. And someone said to me, "Oh, it's got a typo. You've put TEH instead of THE." And I went, "No, that's
The
idiomatic
internet way.
of the internet. It's an idiom. It's a meme. No, it's not incorrectly spelt. Yes, it is, but it's not. Okay. So now we've really gone off track. Now, finally, talking about internet, Mark, this is a story that you wrote this week, and this is claiming to be the world's most compact EV. I don't know if it is the world's most compact EV. It's called
they've claimed it, so it was. It's called the Irby, to rhyme with Herbie, I imagine.
It's called the Irby. Look at the wrong one. Whoops.
So it's a little 2 or 3 wheeled fold up electric scooter, I guess would be the best way of doing it, but it's very minimal, it's very light, and it's got a little luggage rack as an option on it. It can be multicolored, and the idea is that it will solve the last mile problem, which is you drive your EV from your house to the train station or to a park and ride outside of where you work. And then that last mile to get to work is generally the dirtiest because you're getting on some sort of diesel bus, or you are on some horrid train, or yeah. And so it solves that problem by you can drive there, pull this out of your car, hop on it, and it can go about 20 miles and about brilliant. 20 miles an hour. I think it looks really cool. It's got a little light on the front. And like I said, you can have it in a 3-wheel, which is more stability for in and around town, or you can have it as a 2-wheel, which is slightly more fun. And I can totally see it working.
Except it's not going to work in the UK.
Well,
it's not allowed in Europe.
Because of the speed it can go at, I guess?
Because it doesn't have a set of pedals.
What?
Yep. In order to have an electric vehicle in Europe like that, because it's top speed of 15 miles an hour, Mark. Certainly in the version I looked at, in order to be legal on the roads in Europe, it has to be if it's got pedals and it has a top speed of 15 miles an hour and a motor no bigger, with a peak output no bigger than 250 watts. It can be a pedelec electric bicycle. It has to have an electrically assisted mode rather than an all-electric mode. So you have to pedal, and then the electric motor can assist you. Now, there are some vehicles that were grandfathered in that don't have that, but this is, I think, the law. It has to have pedals, you have to pedal it. And when you start pedaling, that's when the motor kicks in. You can't operate the motor independently of the pedals. It has to have a top speed of 50 miles an hour, and you're not allowed to drive them until you're 15 or 14. Any faster than that, and it's classed as a moped. And if it doesn't have pedals, it's classed as a moped.
Oh, see, no, that's it. I don't want to live in this country anymore. I move into America just so I can have one of these. It's so cool. Look at it.
It is awesome, isn't it? I think it'd be great. I do think it'd be great. But there we go. That's it. That was our round finally. We don't have any feedback this week.
I was going to say it's being kickstarted on Indiegogo. It's being Indiegogoed and
not kickstarted.
Funding left.
I can't believe you just said kickstarted on Indiegogo.
I know. Kickstarter has become the verb. Like, you can Google something on Bing.
No, you can't. That breaks my little head. Scott, save me. So, Scott, thank you very much for joining us. You've had some more charging put in at your work, haven't you?
We did. We had another 10 units put in, 8 of the 1872s and 2 of the 80 amp.
So this means everyone can charge happily?
I'm seeing lots of people with lots of space to charge right now. So I think our 40 some odd vehicles will be good for another 6 months or so.
Yay. That's good.
So when we come and visit and we've rented an EV, we'll be totally fine.
Yeah, these are in our garage though, so you have to ring me up so I can open it up so you can get past the gate.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
There we go. Someone in the chat room's just called me the super multitasker. I'm not sure quite if that is true or not, but I will try. Anyway, we'll try and live up to that reputation badly, probably. That is it for this week. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on iTunes, and you can find us every day, each and every day, at www.transportevolve.com, where Mark and I will have the latest news, won't we, Mark, in the world of plug-in vehicles.
We do.
I'm not sure if there's going to be a live show next week. I'm going to be completely honest with you because I've been invited to Southampton to meet LEAF drivers and other EV drivers in the flesh. And while all of you in the virtual internets are wonderful people, I think it would be nice to go and do something there. And we'll maybe do like a clip show next week instead of a live show. And we might also do it on Saturday. So keep up to date with us on Twitter at Transport Evolve, and we'll make sure that you know what we're going to do. But until next time, folks, thanks for joining us, and don't forget to plug in. See you soon. Take care. Bye.